Welcome to NCHS Podcasts. On this episode of Talkin Sports, we will be going through our picks for this year's NFL Divisional round, as well as our Super Bowl matchups and winner. On today's show, we have me, Henry SIlva.
Me, Donovan West.
And myself, John Frieders.
And without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first matchup we have today is the Houston Texans at Baltimore Ravens, Saturday at 4:30 on ABC. Frieders, what's your pick?
Yeah, in this game, I have to go with the Houston Texans, although it's probably not the popular opinion as the Baltimore Ravens are considered the best team in the AFC. I believe that the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud under center, as well as just a lot of young talent in that locker room, in the coaching staff, and in the players, I believe that they'll come out on top.
I got to disagree with you there. I think the Ravens have, for the past the whole season really, but really the past 4 weeks have just shown that they are the best team in football. They blew out the 49ers. They blew out the Dolphins. They have the MVP. They have the best defense in football. This Ravens team is just so well-rounded. All the C.J. Stroud hype comes after they beat Joe Flacco. Now they face Lamar Jackson. I just don't think C.J. Stroud will know what to do in a road playoff atmosphere in Baltimore. I got to go with the Ravens here over the Texans.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those C.J. Stroud's kind of him handling himself under pressure. Obviously, he played in a national championship game. He played in a must-win game against the Indianapolis Colts. Then he played last week where he had to win against the Cleveland Browns. I wouldn't say pressure is a big factor. I think, obviously, the Ravens fans are going to be loud, but I don't think that the pressure is going to have really a big impact on the rookie. And also, one more question to throw at you after Silva, you go. How credible is that Dolphins win?
Well, I think the Dolphins they were a playoff team. At the time, it was, Jalen Waddle was out. But, they're still a well-coached team. It was still a good team. I guess maybe not the most credible. They did look kind of silly in the last round. But they did blow out the 49ers, which I think is a common Super Bowl pick. And to the C.J. Stroud point, he did lose to Georgia in that playoff semifinal. He did have an insane game, but he did lose that game. And also, NFL playoffs, Baltimore, it'll be a whole new beast that if he can prove me wrong, then he'll be possibly a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But right now, it's I gotta see it to believe it first.
I'm gonna have to disagree, man. When I think C.J. Stroud, I think maturity, and I think C.J. Stroud is starting to prove himself as one of the most mature quarterbacks that we're gonna see in the NFL for years to come. He comes into the playoffs, he goes on the Pat McAfee show, and they tell him, that you have no chance. You're a rookie quarterback. His response is just all right. He's gonna go in, he's gonna have the same mentality he's had all season. He's gonna go in and he's gonna beat the Browns and beat them pretty handedly too at that. So, I'm going to have to go with the Texans over the Ravens here. And, I think the Texans, too, have a lot of young players that are starting to come into their own. Will Anderson, for example, star defensive end for the Texans. Beginning of the season, he started off kind of rough, but towards the end, he's really pulled it together. He's really becoming a superstar in the NFL. So I'm going to have to go with Texans in this game here.
Yeah, I also think that the Texans really have nothing to lose. Obviously, a first-year head coach, a couple guys in that front office that are also first years, as well as there's many key contributing rookies on the Houston Texans, which is also kind of similar to the Green Bay Packers in that they have a bunch of young guys stepping up. But I think that the Texans really making the playoffs makes it a successful season, and no matter how far they go, they're still going to look back on this season and they're going to have a lot of good jumping points into next season. And if they can beat the Ravens, they're going to be considered one of the top teams in the NFL.
Well, speaking of the Packers, our next game that we have is the Packers at the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday as well at 8:15. In this game, I have the 49ers winning, and I don't think that much needs to be said. I think the 49ers are pretty much the most complete team in the NFL, even though Brock Purdy is considered a system quarterback and more of a game manager. I think that that's all they need. They were able to go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo only a few years ago. And their defense is just, it's incredible, their defense. And I think Jordan Love, being the young first-year starter that he is, I think he's going to struggle a little bit with that defense, especially on the road at San Francisco. And I think that the Packers defense has been really inconsistent all year. and they're going to have to hold CMC, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. All are just all pro players. So it's going to be really difficult for the Packers to try to overcome them.
I think it's hard to disagree with you there. I mean, just the sheer amount of playmakers, the defense, like you said. I mean, Brock Purdy honestly just needs to play his C game to beat this Packers team. And that's no disrespect to the Packers. That's just how good this 49ers team, how well it's constructed and how well it has played all season long. Obviously, the Packers went into Dallas and they destroyed Dak, America's team, and a common Super Bowl pick. But honestly, I just don't know if the Packers will ever perform in the playoffs. And if that is, I mean, it's a really nice win for the Packers, but I don't know if they'll be able to beat a team as good and as well-rounded and as proven in the playoffs like the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both of you guys in taking the 49ers, but I believe that this game will actually be closer than people think. I think that there's basically two options here, at least in my opinion. I think that the game's either going to be a blowout or it's going to come really down to the wire. It's going to be really, really close. It might be tied. I think that like the Packers with Jordan Love's either going to have another stellar game against probably a much better defense. Obviously, the Cowboys' defense just looked awful, putrid. When they faced the Cowboys in the playoffs, and that score kind of represented how the game went. Love really got whatever he wanted with those 7 young, talented wide receivers and Romeo Doubs, and they do have a really solid squad they're building there. It kind of brings many parallels to the Houston Texans, but I also think that going up against the 49ers and 7 Pro Bowl guys, you know, Brock Purdy, obviously, and him being a system quarterback, I mean, we need to redefine what a system quarterback is, because isn't the whole goal to build around your quarterback and to bring out the best in the quarterback? I think that the 49ers have done a really great job of it, and their system really allows him to flourish just as it did with their other quarterbacks. But I think part of what makes Purdy so good is his team around him, and I think Love's kind of building that, and I think this is also another case where them making the playoffs is remarkable. People really didn't have any expectations after they lost to Aaron Rodgers, and I think that move to move on from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love is going to be probably the best move that they've ever made so far. Obviously, you're moving from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to now Jordan Love, all 3 potential Hall of Famers, depending on how well Jordan Love progresses and how well he plays.
I have a question for both of you before. Neutral field, who wins, Texans or Packers?
That's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with the Texans. I'm assuming both teams are fully healthy too, because I think something huge for the Texans that they've been missing is Tank Dell. And I think if you throw Tank Dell back into that mix and neutral field, you have the Packers and that Texans face off. I think both have found their guy at quarterback, but I do again think that CJ Stroud's a little bit more mature. He's a little bit more developed than Jordan Love. Jordan Love's a lot of talent, and I think CJ Stroud is a lot more developed. He's a little bit more of a hard worker, and he's a little bit more fundamental than Jordan Love is. So I have the Texans beating them there because I think it's going to be a matter of quarterbacks in that game.
I mean, is it really a surprise that Jordan Love's as good as he is after sitting behind Rodgers for 3 years? I think that time that he got to kind of learn from Aaron Rodgers, mature, people draw so many parallels in between his game and Rodgers' game, but look at what happened. He sat behind Rodgers for 3 years. When he was drafted, everyone looked at the Packers and was like, what are you doing? You have Aaron Rodgers. Why would you draft a young quarterback? Isn't he your guy? And I think that that ability to kind of have Jordan Love mature and come into this situation really has brought him to that next level. And then on the other side, obviously Stroud is a very mature young man. He went to Ohio State, which is one of the biggest programs in college football. And whenever you get a quarterback from those top programs like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, you'll find them to be successful and you'll find them to be difference makers immediately.
Yeah, but I do think Ohio State's a little bit of an oddball, which is why CJ Stroud's so special. Because years past, Ohio State quarterbacks haven't really worked out in the NFL. I mean, you have Justin Fields, who it's debatable on how he's going to turn out, but it doesn't look like he's going to stay in Chicago right now. You've had Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace. He didn't necessarily do too well at first too, but I think CJ Stroud is something magical, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of him in the playoffs in years to come.
Yeah, both teams. Great question, Donovan.
Yeah, I was just because you guys didn't really mention much about the Ravens, and then you draw parallels to the Packers, and then you take the Packers. You take the 49ers, but then you take the Texans in the other game. So there are some parallels in the game as they're young quarterbacks, young teams playing these probably the Super Bowl matchup that everyone is predicting in the 49ers Ravens. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those, if either of the young teams can pull off the big upset on the road.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very likely scenario that one of those teams, whether it's the Texans or the Packers, pulls off an upset. Obviously, they have the offensive firepower. It's kind of just about hanging with the other teams in terms of defensive schemes and being able to neutralize their best players. And I think that's what the game will come down to, especially in the Ravens game. I think that the ability to kind of block OBJ and Lamar Jackson, I think that puts them in a really good situation. And I'm pretty sure they're probably going to watch a lot of film on when the Ravens play the Steelers, because it feels like whenever those teams play, it's a close game no matter what.
Yeah. And moving on, we're going to stay in the NFC, and we are going to look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing off in Detroit against the Lions Sunday at 3 on NBC.
Yeah, well, I know the Lions are the favorite. The Lions basically are America's team now. Everyone has been rooting for the story. They love Dan Campbell. They love the comeback of Jared Goff. They just beat the Rams, the Rams are a really good team. I mean, either team could have won that game, and either team is good enough to go to the Super Bowl. But in this one, I do have the Bucs. I just think that the Lions' defense is kind of fraudulent. They've given up 325-plus yards in each of the last 4 games, including 411 to Nick Mullins. I mean, Baker Mayfield's going to have his team playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to come and fired up. And I think an interesting factor that, I mean, maybe the Lions will be able to overcome it, but the Lions have thrived all year on the role of underdog. No one has expected them to go to the playoffs. No one thought they would beat the Rams. Well, most people thought. No one thought they could win a playoff game this year. But now they are the favorites for the second week in a row. And just how will they keep that chip on their shoulder, and how will they play when they're no longer the underdogs? In my opinion, I think the Buccaneers will take that chip on their shoulder and will go and shock the world.
Yeah, I'm not so sold on that opinion, actually. I think one big problem for Baker Mayfield is always the turnovers and the interceptions. It feels like whenever I'm watching the Buccaneers, I almost bet with my dad, like, oh, he's going to throw a pick in the next couple plays in at least the next series. So I think that's kind of where the game will be won. If the Lions can, obviously, if they dominate on defense, then the game won't be close. They also have that home field advantage, and it's going to be all Lions fans. I don't expect any Buccaneers fans to make that travel.
It's going to be really loud
from Florida all the way up to Detroit and Michigan, obviously. And weather's not going to play a factor, which will definitely help the Buccaneers, and that they don't play in many snowy games. But I think that part of this game is definitely that home field advantage. And it really swings it so that the Lions have obviously the home field advantage, which is well deserved, but you always got to watch out for the Buccaneers. They got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, but also in that last game, their receivers didn't really play as well as they probably should have. I saw Mike Evans drop that touchdown pass, that deep ball from Baker right in the breadbasket, and he dropped it. So that'll definitely be a factor, but if the Lions defense can hold up, it should be a really good game.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree with you there with picking the Lions. I think, Lions have been kind of the underdogs in this whole playoffs. They went into the Rams game, and a lot of people thought that the Rams would be pulling off an upset. And, me, myself, I'm an Eagles fan, and I just kind of see this parallel going on with the 2017 Eagles when they went to win the Super Bowl. They lose their starting quarterback. Everyone starts to doubt them, and, they just don't care. Dan Campbell's built a really great culture there, I think, and I think Jared Goff is really rallying and developing great chemistry with his teammates. And I think that their offense is really flourishing right now. And I think in today's NFL, offense is the biggest thing. You need a good defense, but if you cannot score the points that you need, you're not going to be able to win games. And I think that the Lions, have one of, if not the best offensives in the NFL.
Yeah, and what propelled them to beat the Rams was actually their red zone offense being able to convert, which is why the Rams lost the game. They went 0 for 3 in the red zone. So if the Lions can do that again, obviously
the Rams went 0 for 3.
Yeah,
what the Lions go? Do you have that?
I do not have that stat.
But they were able to be more effective.
They were
in the red
able
zone,
to be more effective, more efficient. Obviously, they got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's undoubtedly one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Phenomenal player. Great fantasy guy.
Phenomenal. You got David Montgomery in the backfield,
I think
as well
Jahmyr
as
Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs. So kind of that combination between running the ball right up the gut and that agility back, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who went to Alabama and who's a really solid player. Obviously, we haven't mentioned him much early on in the season, but as the season's progressed, he's kind of found his groove. The Lions definitely have a lethal offense. They just need to be able to get it running.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have to ask you though, because you said Jared Goff or you said Baker Mayfield had turnover problems, but I mean the other side of the ball is Jared Goofball. I mean, there's not that much difference quarterbacks. So I think what the game will come down to is which quarterback will play better. And you guys think Jared Goff will play better, but I think Baker Mayfield will be able to get it done on the road.
I don't even know if it's playing better. I just think it is a game of turnovers, though. I think it's who's going to turn the ball over more. That team's not going to do as well. I mean, you're going to give both of these teams have good offenses, so they both have weapons on both sides. So, I mean, I think that the turnovers are really going to cost whichever team has more. You're going to give the other team way too many opportunities to score, too many opportunities to get back in the game, So I think that's really going to be a big factor.
Yeah, and you saw in the Rams-Detroit game, obviously, neither team had a turnover, which is really impressive and really almost unheard of in the NFL nowadays. You see a lot of fumbles or interceptions. So the Lions have proved that they can play turnover-free football, obviously, against the Rams and against other opponents this season.
It's going to be a great game. So for our last matchup, we're going back to the AFC, and we are going to be looking at the Kansas City Chiefs as they travel to the very cold Buffalo Bills on Sunday at 6:30.
It's going to be a great game. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. I know Travis Kelce hasn't been great, but I mean, it's still Travis Kelce. The defense, the beginning of the season, they were excellent. They've kind of tapered off a bit here, but I think they're good enough to stifle the Bills just enough. And at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't really matter his receivers. I think he will be able to get it done. They've struggled coming into the playoffs, but they have beaten the Bills 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and I don't think that will change. I just don't know if Josh Allen can get it done against Patrick Mahomes. And another interesting point here is I saw that Taylor Swift will not be coming to the game in Buffalo. Maybe it's a little too cold. So maybe that means Travis Kelce might return to his best version, which would be huge for Patrick Mahomes.
She was at the Chiefs game, though. -20 or whatever.
That's true. I don't know, but I saw she wasn't coming, and that could be good for Travis Kelce.
Well, that's another factor is obviously the Bills come off that win. Both teams come off wins in cold environments, freezing environments. So both teams not affected by weather prove that they can win. And between these teams, it's always a dogfight no matter what. It's a coin flip. They played in a tough weather game, I believe, the last time they played.
Yeah, I think it was pretty cold.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens. But I'm with Donovan on you can't bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. It feels like they always pull a bag out of their tricks, or a trick out of their bag whenever they need to. Whenever they need that big play, they figure out a way to get it.
Just keep Tony on the bench, I'd say.
Yeah, that Chiefs wide receiving core, you gotta watch it. They've proved that they can't catch the ball this season. I believe that they have over 50 drop passes, 40 at least 40 drop passes on the season.
At least.
So that's a lot of balls that you're dropping.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, disagree with both of you there. I'm gonna have to go with the Bills here. I think that this matchup, we've seen it the past 2 years, and I think we're gonna keep seeing this matchup year in, year out. Kansas City, Buffalo, it's going to be a great game every single time, and I think it's going to be another great game. But I'm going to have to go with the Bills here. They've lost 2 straight to the Chiefs. I understand, Josh Allen has yet to beat Patrick Mahomes, but I really think that this time the Bills are going to come through. I think the Bills are really clicking. They're on a 6-game win streak. Don't laugh at me, Frieders.
So does that make you part of Bills Mafia?
Oh, 100%
Bills Mafia. Talking about the Bills right now?
I love Bills Mafia. But, Josh Allen's, he's been playing, probably some of the best football at anyone in the NFL. And I know Lamar Jackson is the favorite to win MVP. He'll probably end up pulling away with that. But, besides the early season turnovers, Josh Allen has really been playing some spectacular football. And
do you trust Sean McDermott, though? Will he be able to out-coach Andy Reid? I think that there is a big coaching advantage in these playoffs. I mean, sometimes it comes down to these late game scenarios, and the better coach has an impact on the game. And I think Andy Reid definitely has the Chiefs ahead in that category.
I agree with you there. I think Andy Reid is, he's one of the better better coaches, that we have seen in a long time. But, even with that advantage, I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, when those two are clicking together, I think it is pretty hard to beat them. And James Cook too, he's been playing especially well lately, making a last minute push for a possible Offensive Player of the Year award. I know he's in the conversation. He's probably not going to pull away with it, but he's been playing some phenomenal football, and I think that the Bills are rolling right now. I think it's going to be tough to stop them.
And it's going to be Bills Mafia is going to be loud.
Bills Mafia, roll Mafia.
Yeah, two similar fan bases in the Eagles and the Bills. If you go in to their stadium, you're going to feel it.
Oh, yeah. Traveling to Buffalo, traveling to Philly, that away team definitely has the disadvantage there. So I'm going to go with the Bills. This is
Mahomes' first road playoff game. I don't know if either of you knew that.
Really?
This is the first playoff game he's playing on the road, so it'll be interesting to see.
That will be interesting.
How he plays when he's not at Arrowhead.
And it's not Miami. It's in Buffalo, so it's definitely,
Yeah, it's cool. Wow, Patrick Mahomes is really great. All right. So we're going to wrap up this podcast going through our Super Bowl matchups now that we have gone through with our picks and who we think is going to win. Donovan, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go a bit of a boring pick here. Well, I guess not that. But this would be a very exciting Super Bowl. And I'm going to go 49ers versus Chiefs, a rematch of 2 years ago. And I think the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes will be able to get it done. I think they will defend their title. I think in these playoffs, it just really emphasizes that the best quarterback is going to win the game. And Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. And at the end of the day, I think he will lead his team to the Super Bowl victory back-to-back years.
That would be a great matchup. I'm going to have to go kind of similar. 49ers versus Bills. I think that the Bills in the matchups I've picked are going to beat the Texans and find themselves in the Super Bowl. And I think the 49ers are going to make it out and beat Detroit eventually because, I'm going to have 49ers winning my Super Bowl because they are the most complete team in the NFL. And I do believe that. And I believe that, the amount of playmakers and superstars and that they have on that team is almost ridiculous, and it's going to be hard to beat them.
So who's the 49ers Super Bowl MVP if they win? McCaffrey or Purdy?
Christian McCaffrey, 100%. He's going to end up with 2 or 3 touchdowns that game.
And I guess I'm going to be the wild card here. Obviously, for the Michigan National Championship, I was the wild card, and I'm going to be the wild card again. I'm going to go Texans 49ers.
Wow.
I think that the Texans really have it. I believe in C.J. Stroud. I'm a C.J. Stroud believer. And then obviously on the other side, the 49ers, most complete team in the league. As we mentioned, I don't think anyone can stop every single offensive weapon. I think you're either going to have to kind of scheme it to stop Brandon Ayuk and those wide receivers, Deebo Samuel, or you're going to stop Christian McCaffrey. And the other one, the one that's not defended as tightly is going to be a key contributor, and Purdy's going to have a good game. I believe in Brock Purdy. And C.J. Stroud, I think that he's going to stay cool under pressure, and he's going to make some noise.
So you're picking the Niners to win that one?
Yeah, I'm picking the Niners to win that one.
Okay. So it's definitely going to be a wild playoff. There's a lot of fun teams to watch, the usuals like the Chiefs and the Niners, but I don't know. It'll be dramatic.
Yeah, certainly going to be fun to watch. Saturday and Sunday, make sure you guys tune into those games. And I think that's just going to be wrapping it up for today's episode on the Talking Sports podcast. I'm Henry SIlva.
I'm Donovan West.
And I'm John Frieders.
And thank you all for joining us.
bensound.com